It is a real compliment. I missed that show something awful. I loved every one of those ladies. They were awesome.
You were not the first person to tell me that, so that's funny.
I never noticed it before, but you really look like her now. Okay, we got a good turnout. I just love it that for those of you who don't know, this is being recorded and it will be on the Working Well website, and I think Megan sends out the link. If you don't have the link, just go to workingwelltoday.org and click under what we do, community initiatives, and you can pull up the one I've already done, Sugar Busters and Motivation, and this one will be on there by tomorrow at the latest. Okay, I think whenever you're ready to go.
Okay, I'm ready. Hi, everyone. My name is Afaf Qasem, and I'm the Director of Quality of Life Services here at TMH. And basically what I do is I help create projects and programs around improving quality of life for our patients, our colleagues, and our community members. And I am also a registered dietitian, so hence why I'm talking about the non-diet approach. And I'll kind of go into what I mean by that. Okay. If it will let me. Okay, so first thing I'm going to talk about is what is a fad diet? And I think a lot of people hear this term and sometimes we get on these trends and we get really excited because either we're trying to lose weight or we're trying to change our health conditions or our habits or prevent disease. So there's a lot of reasons why someone would think about wanting to go on a diet. But knowing which ones are good, how to tell if it is a fad diet is what I want to talk about right now. So generally, anything that really defines the diet defines itself as a quick fix. So mistaken belief that a radical change in our diets can result in a new physique is something that I think a lot of us struggle with because we do want quick results and we want to see whether that's, numbers on a scale or whether that's inches on our waist or whatever goal we're trying to achieve. But we really need to remember our physical health from the inside as well when we're trying to make these decisions about what diet to follow. But examples of some diets that you might find that tell you, weight loss in 10 pounds in 1 week or melt the fat away in 1 week. And I understand that a lot of people want to do these because they want results, but we just have to be careful about which ones we're choosing to follow and whether we know that they're safe. So how do you determine a fact from a fad? Well, you can determine if it's a fad diet if you ask yourself these questions. Does the diet promise quick weight loss? Does the diet sound too good to be true? Does the diet lack scientific evidence to support its claim? And does the diet give a list of good and bad food or bad food? If you can answer yes to any of these questions, it's probably a fad diet. And again, we really want to make sure that we're following diets or making a lifestyle change that really fosters our health in terms of preventing chronic disease and managing our diseases. And of course, people who have the goal for weight loss, that is a part of that for some people. So just really realizing, is it scientific evidence? Are they telling me to exclude anything? Because we know that also doesn't help create a good relationship with food. And we want a positive relationship with all food groups as well. So although we all want to lose weight quick, or some of us might want to lose weight quick, we need to think about whether it's safe or not. So what are some popular American diets that are out there right now? I'm not going to go over all of them. I think you all would agree that there's so many. And of course, at the end, if you have questions about specific ones, I'd be happy to answer them. If I don't know the answer about a specific diet or trend, because I'm always trying to keep up, I'll make sure I get back with you after researching it. So one of the diets I want to talk about has been popular and trendy right now is the keto or ketogenic diet. So what is it? It's a low carb, high fat diet that puts your body into a state called ketosis. So what happens is your body thinks it's going into starvation mode, and because the carbs are so low, so to combat that fatigue, it kicks itself into ketosis. And I won't go into the whole metabolic pathway, but your body breaks down fat and produces those ketones, which are used as the body's source of energy instead of how we're using carbohydrates. So with a diet so low in carbs like keto, that's really what's happening metabolically. And just know that your brain actually prefers carbohydrates as its first line of energy use. So what are the claims around ketogenic diet? Well, weight loss, reduced appetite, loss of abdominal fat, and lowered triglycerides. In the research, we may cause some weight loss short term, but we're really looking for those long-term results. And there's some worry around the keto diet that once people get off of it, because it's very hard to maintain, is that they regain the weight that they lost, if not more than that. So long-term, we need more research and results on whether or not people can actually maintain it. So what are the concerns? Well, it's not sustainable. The risk for increased cholesterol levels is really, really high. So we want to make sure that we understand that when we say low carb, high protein or high fat, a lot of people are actually not looking at the types of fats they're eating. So, bacon and things with a lot of saturated fat in them, red meat. So they're eating a lot more of that because they're compensating for not getting enough carbs. And some people are not paying attention to their saturated fat consumption, which we know is linked to heart disease. So some people will struggle with increased cholesterol levels or other issues related to that high saturated fat intake because they're focusing on that low carb approach. And some people are doing the healthier fat, so they don't have this problem as much. So it is a concern for just some. So should you follow it? Well, it's difficult to sustain long-term, and diet restricting fruits, vegetables, fiber, we know is a problem because we embrace all food groups, right, in order to make a healthy, well-balanced diet to get a lot of nutrients. And this diet in a lot of cases may exclude something like fruit if you're too close to that carb limit. And some people are consuming as low as 30 grams of carbs a day, which is pretty significantly low. So they have to kind of omit some things from their diet because it's hard to get that in. And just to give you perspective, a piece of toast is 15 grams of carbs. So saying like if we're going as low as 30, not much you can fit into that kind of diet. So in general, high protein, low carb diets, not putting a name on this. Some people follow these as well. Rapid weight loss may occur, but it may be due to water and not fat. Rapid weight loss may cause loss of lean body mass if we're not doing it properly. So if we're restricting too much, then we tend to lose muscle first, not fat. It may decrease our metabolic rate because we know that our muscle can actually burn faster than our fat. Or burn calories faster than our fat. So loss of B vitamins, calcium, and potassium because you omit some of the food groups that are carb dense. It may result in fatigue, nausea, dehydration, dizziness, headache. High protein diets will work temporarily because the calorie intake is low, but a lot of people will gain the weight back once the diet is discontinued. Again, I'm trying to help you understand that side of lifestyle change and behavior change that leads to that. And a lot of times whenever we do the short-term diets, sometimes it helps people kickstart into a lifestyle, and a lot of times it doesn't do that, and it doesn't help people, and they also regain the weight back. So the next diet I'm going to talk about is detoxing or cleansing. This one's another trendy diet. So what is it? You have a strict consumption of fruits and vegetable juices for days to weeks. So I'm not talking about juicing or cleansing in addition to your diet. I'm talking about going on a cleanse and just consuming these juices or this concoction of mixtures of fruits and vegetables in a liquid form only. So what are the claims around juicing or cleansing? Reducing of bloating, reduced toxins, and glowing skin. And the research is just not supporting the evidence for detoxification. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Concerns, low protein, very low fiber, because we're not really consuming the whole food itself. We're actually taking it down to a liquid. Hunger cravings, so we're ignoring our hunger and fullness cues, and that doesn't really help with long-term weight management. You can have weight loss from muscle because it's very low in protein. And the bottom line is the body has its own natural way of detoxing. And how does our body do this? Well, through our livers and kidneys. This is the body's natural way of detoxing. Now, that doesn't mean fruits or vegetables don't aid in the help or aid in the digestion process. That is something I'll talk about in just a minute. But our body has its own natural way of getting rid of our toxins. And that's something we need to remember. And those are our liver and our kidneys. It can be a great addition to your diet, to a well-balanced diet, to increase your fruits and your vitamins and minerals. So there's nothing wrong with juicing, especially because you're getting more of those nutrients. It's whenever you're supplementing it for different food groups. So you might ask, well, then how can we support our body's natural detoxification process? We can make sure we stay hydrated. We can eat 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And that is on the higher side because some people are still trying to get that 3 to 5, and that's okay if that's you. But trying to get 5 to 9 is also an excellent way to try to increase that detoxification process. Consuming fiber every day from fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. Eating foods that support your detoxification. So cruciferous vegetables like cabbage and cauliflower, berries, artichokes, garlic, onions, spices like turmeric, and of course, green tea. All of those have natural antioxidants in them that will support your body's detoxification process. Some more tips, consuming adequate protein to maintain optimum levels. The body's a master at detoxification, but we want to make sure we're giving different foods from different food groups in order to create special enzymes that our bodies need. And glutathione is one of those. So, and that comes from protein. So eating naturally fermented foods like kefir and yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut. Some people would like to take a probiotic supplement. And if you are that person, I think that's great, but please make sure you're speaking to your doctor about it because there are different probiotics for different functions, okay? There's digestive related, and there's a lot of different systems in our body which you would need different probiotics for, but also you wanna make sure that it's appropriate in addition to any medications you're taking or any other supplements. So it's important that you talk to your doctor about a supplement intake. And of course, maintaining bowel regularity. So all the things we talked about can help do that, but that also helps manage your body's way of getting rid of toxins. So then what is the recommended approach to addressing whether it might be reducing your risk for heart disease, managing your cholesterol, or just losing weight? I'm going to talk about some basic approaches to that. Of course, this isn't individualized for each person, but what does a good diet look like? Well, it includes all your major food groups. It's sustainable, so you can maintain the diet for a lifetime. It's realistic and it supports your own health and wellness goals. Sometimes I speak to people about the diets they've chosen to be on, and a lot of times they're eating foods they don't like or they're doing things they don't enjoy. And that is something that we need to think about because, again, if we want it to be a lifestyle change, to improve our quality of life, to improve our nutrition status or a chronic disease, we want to make sure we're happy doing it. And it's important to do that if you want to maintain something. So focusing on behavior and lifestyle changes and choosing those foods or choosing that diet is super important. And of course, we can't forget, we don't want to do a diet that does not fit in our budget. We know that is definitely not sustainable. And there are definitely ways to eat healthy on a budget. So we have to figure out where we are in that spectrum as well. And of course, this is a choosemyplate.gov, which is an excellent resource I'll talk about further in just a minute. And this is the MyPlate. So if you haven't heard about MyPlate, we're going to talk about it in just a minute. So MyPlate is our way of approaching diet and lifestyle at the very basic level. And it's incorporating fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy as part of your diet. Hence why they change it from the pyramid to a plate. It's because we eat off of a plate. Not a pyramid. So the tips related to MyPlate is enjoying your food, but eating less of it. A lot of times portion control is an issue when trying to manage your weight or chronic disease. Making half your plate fruits and vegetables. Make at least half of your grains whole grains. Trying to compare labels related to sodium and sugar and saturated fat. So learning to read a label, and that might be something we can talk about at another time, is really important in trying to manage your health condition or manage your weight. It's really important that we learn how to read a label so we can make the best choices. I think a lot of people tell me, you know, I do eat on a budget. I do want to make sure I learn how to read a label because sometimes some of those items are more convenient. So it isn't just about, you know, the item being inexpensive. A lot of us are busy. So we need items that are convenient. So learning how to read a label can help you achieve both of those goals. Drinking water, of course, instead of sugary beverages, switching to a lower fat milk or yogurt, and then being active your way. Again, that goes back to, if you don't like running, it's okay, don't run. So there might be other things you can do that meets your needs, because we know that you'll sustain that over time versus doing something you don't really enjoy. Okay, so portion sizes. This is a little not aligned, but hopefully you can kind of get where I'm going with what's underneath it. So vegetables, 2 cups of vegetables. It gives you perspective on like half my plate being fruits and vegetables. This could help give you perspective if you're not measuring food, which is also okay. You can do it by using your hands. A fist size is a cup, and normally that's used to measure a grain. Palm is a protein. So a lot of times, I don't know if you probably can't see me because I have it minimized, but the palm of your hand, a lot of times, and depending on who you are, if your hand is bigger, you're in luck because you can have more protein, but it's that palm size. And then another fist for fruits, and then thumb for 1 tablespoon of a portion of something. If you have a chronic disease like diabetes or heart disease, these recommendations might be different for you. This is based on basic general education. So if that is you, then it might be a different story, because if you have diabetes, you might be counting your carbs or watching how much fruit you consume or added sugar from different beverages. So the portions might differ for you. So just make note of that. Other ways, increasing activity, anything that gets you moving, going, you can burn calories that way. Varying your routine to prevent boredom. Some of us do the same thing over and over and we just get sick of it. And maybe even finding an exercise partner, and in these days, a virtual one, to keep you accountable. I can just give you an example right now. It's, I'm just sharing what I do. So it's my sister and my aunt, and we're kind of a trio that at 5:30, 3 days a week, we get together and we're accountability buddies. So if both of them are busy, I'm like, who's going to make sure I exercise today? So it really does help me, and it might help you with accountability. And it's actually fun whenever you're doing it with someone else. Hydrate, drink plenty of water. This helps you promote a feeling of fullness. Sometimes our body confuses hunger, and we tend to eat when really our body wants water. So it's really understanding your hunger and fullness cues at that point and figuring out, are you eating because it's something you're going through emotional, or are you eating because your body says you're hungry? It's a physical state. So if there is a diet, I think everyone's heard of the Mediterranean diet that we recommend all the time. This is one, and right now the Mediterranean diet is still on a pyramid, but essentially it encompasses all food groups. There might be a little less of certain food groups, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but you see at the base, it says being active, enjoying time with family, with others. In the next line, you have fruits, vegetables, grains, lots of healthy fats, nuts, seeds, legumes, herbs, spices. All of that provides a lot of antioxidants. And we know these diets can help support a healthy immune system, help prevent and manage chronic diseases like heart disease and cancer and diabetes. Next level up, you have fish and seafood. Then you have poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt. And then you can see the top is, we didn't eliminate any meat or sweets. It's just a lot less. And of course, there's alcohol, and then drinking water and alcohol, of course, needs to definitely be in moderation. And that's, 1 glass for females and no more than 2 glasses for males. If you don't drink, don't start drinking. There's definitely other ways to get the health benefits, and eating grapes can give you those antioxidants as well. So what is a Mediterranean diet? We just talked about it a little bit, but it's a lifestyle, and it's inspired by the countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Middle East. The claims reduce risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, weight loss, neurodegenerative diseases. It's researched very well. It's not a new diet that just came about, this year or 2 years ago. So a lot of the claims that are mentioned are actually confirmed. Concerns, alcohol needs to be in moderation. And again, if you don't drink, don't start. And the bottom line is that it's an overall good quality diet because it incorporates all the food groups. Next, I'm going to move into tips to following the 9 diet approach, because we can learn and educate ourselves about a lot of different diets in the Mediterranean or My Plate, but it goes back to behavior change and how do I make this part of my life, especially if for 20, 30 years, I've been doing the same thing over and over. So creating that new behavior is not something that happens overnight. So we need to cut ourselves some slack and realize that. So small changes have a very large impact on your health, even when you don't realize it. And that does not have to come in the form of a number on a scale. Okay, that could be you switching your Coke to a water, instead of drinking 3 Cokes a day, you drink 2, which you might be like, well, I'm still drinking Coke. Yeah, but you're drinking 1 less. And that's a small change that will eventually over time lead you to maybe drinking 1, less than 1, none, whatever that may be. But your wellness journey has to come from obviously changes you want to make, but it's okay if they're small at first. This isn't a all or nothing process. And I think that's where some of us kind of get confused about the diet approach. We're either on one side of the spectrum where we're following a really strict diet, or on the other side where it's, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want because I give up. And we forget about the in-between. And those small changes are those things that we're talking about in reference to in-between. Number 2, finding workouts that you enjoy. I mentioned this earlier. Be open to trying new activities and allow yourself to move in a way that feels best for you. And a lot of times, some of us have injuries and we do high impact, or we do something that we know isn't good for our body, especially when our doctor told us not to. And we need to be mindful of that, listening to our body and listening to the recommendations provided by experts. Try to be conscious of different diet trends. Oftentimes these can be restrictive and harmful to our natural metabolism. So realizing when that's happening, understanding, fact-checking the diet. We're going to talk about that in a minute too. Number 4, try to create a list of goals. This one is something I really do recommend a lot. It goes back to writing down those small changes. If you can write realistic goals for yourself, like actually write them down on a piece of paper, and then when you write it down, you ask yourself, how motivated am I to making this change? If it's below a 7, may not be the best one to put on your list. If it's above a 7, then you know that you are motivated enough to start this. And if you know later on that changes for you, or later on that you've accomplished it, you can move to the next goal. Your goal does not have to just be a number on a scale. That could be one of your goals, but also increasing fruits, increasing vegetables. And when we say increase, your goal also shouldn't just say increase fruit, right? If let's say you're consuming half a cup of fruit a day and you want to move to 1 cup a day, that would be your goal, right? So you have to individualize it for yourself based off of where you are today. Number 5, give yourself credit for small health goals. I mentioned this earlier. It's not about all or nothing. There is a spectrum in between. And realize that your overall health and wellness goal can change just by doing those small changes. You don't have to give up the foods you love. Try swapping out different ingredients of your favorite dishes. If let's say you feel like your diet is high in something, let's say, I don't know, you use a lot of butter in cooking and you want to switch to olive oil. Doesn't mean you have to exclude butter for the rest of your life, right? We know that in baked goods, we're adding it. Sometimes we want it on a piece of toast. It's all about where you were and where you want to go. And really finding out those small changes for you. And over time, maybe you are consuming butter with all meals and now you're moving it to once, and then eventually you're switching to olive oil when you're cooking or preparing different foods. So again, you don't have to give up sweets. It's all about how often you're eating them. And also giving them up sometimes creates that if I don't have it, then once I see it, I eat a lot of it. And so trying to keep it as part of your diet is important so we don't deprive ourselves of something we actually enjoy. So again, it's going back to creating that healthy relationship with all foods. Honoring your own unique journey. Try learning not to compare yourself to others and embrace the goals that you have. It's great to have a motivation buddy and a partner if you're part of a group, or you do that to stay active, but you're not the other person. You don't have the same needs as far as your individual goals, whether that's chronic disease management, prevention, or just weight loss alone. So try to embrace your own unique journey and do what you feel right for yourself and your own accomplishments. And then maybe your buddy or your partner can help you meet those goals by encouraging you and not necessarily telling you, well, you should do what I'm doing. If it's worked and it's a goal that you've already wanted to do, then great. But just try not to compare yourself with every little thing because it's your own journey. Surround yourself with positive people who support your wellness goals. This will make living a healthier life a lot more enjoyable. Try documenting your goals in a journal. This will remind you of the plans you set for yourself. I mean, we do that with work, right? We have calendars, we have reminders, we write things down because we're probably going to forget it. It's the same thing with your health and wellness goal. And number 10, remember that reaching a desired goal takes time, and be patient and don't give up. So what are some tips and takeaways? In regard to the fad diet or the trends or the industry and the times that we live in, just being aware of Facebook and Instagram posts and random articles you see that tells you, you know, don't ever eat a banana or eat a bunch of bananas or eat a bunch of grapefruit. So sometimes we see those things and we get on this trend without fact checking. It's really important we go back to the evidence and see what, if it's a supported diet or supported trend we should all get on. It doesn't mean all trends are bad, right? So there was a trend where turmeric, people are starting to put turmeric in their cooking, and no one is saying you have to go completely the opposite and put it on everything. It's just incorporating it into your diet. Different teas like matcha became popular. That's a great tea. So it's not that all trends are bad. It's just that you need to fact check where the trend is coming from, and to make sure it's supported by science. And of course, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is a great resource. Today's dietitian, if you are a heavy like science reader, today's dietitian, you'll enjoy those articles. Dietitians who blog. There's a blog called the Nutrition Blog Network. Tons of dietitians out there who are writing blogs who have done the work for you. And again, you can always go back and fact check that too, but know that the resources coming from a registered dietitian are going to be reputable. They're going to already have been looked at and fact checked because we're abiding by ethics and making sure we bring the latest scientific evidence that's also applicable and able to apply it to everyday life. So where do we get this credible information? Well, eatright.org is a website. I mentioned choosemyplate.gov, tmh.org/eathealthy. We actually have a healthy living blog on the TMH website. We write articles and post them there on all topics, not just nutrition. So feel free to go on that as well. The Meal Makeovers is an application. Intuitive Eating, it's a great book, along with Appetite Awareness book. Those will help you tune into your hunger and fullness cues. And a lot of that takes time to develop, but it really does work. And that goes back to mindful eating. It's a special practice that I know someone else is going to talk about as well later on in the weeks. And then that blog I talked about is a nutritionblognetwork.com. So this is my contact info, and I know I still have 30 minutes. I did this on purpose. I really wanted to give time for you guys to ask questions that you may have about lifestyle changes, you know, where to start, maybe you have a question about a specific diet. And of course, if I don't know the answer about that diet, I'd be happy to go in, look in, and fact check it on it and get back with you. So does anybody have any questions now that I can answer for you?
Yeah, could you elaborate on what intuitive eating is?
Yeah. So there actually, intuitive eating goes by 10 principles, and a lot of it is about adapting and listening to your actual hunger and fullness cues. We're born with knowing how to express when we want to eat, when we don't want to eat. We stop when we're full and we eat when we're hungry. And sometimes, depending on our lifestyle and us getting busy and then following trends and ignoring breakfast, a lot of those kind of mess up our rhythm. So being intuitive with your rhythm and hunger and fullness cues is part of that. But these two experts created or wrote this book called Intuitive Eating, and they followed 10 principles to achieving intuitive eating. So it's a really great book that does that. And I don't have the list off the top of my head, but I can pull it, Mary, if you want to go through them. Let's see.
Let's see what other questions. And then if we have time.
Yeah, I did pull them up just in case.
Well, Brian has a question in chat. I'm getting an echo. Question.
I can read too. So I'm going to start with the first question. Are diets like Weight Watchers good? So Weight Watchers, out of a lot of the diets that are out there, Weight Watchers has really done a good job trying to revamp the approach of focusing on different food groups. And for some people, Weight Watchers is great. They like following a point system. They know it really has helped them maintain their weight over time. And some people it hasn't. It really depends on the person. I think it goes back to making sure with Weight Watchers, we're not solely focusing on a point scale or a point system. So when you say things like, well, bacon is only 2 points, right? And then we eat bacon all the time because it's only 2 points. And I know that's an extreme example, but it's just going back to not solely focusing on the points, but realizing what are the different food groups that I'm eating from. And I can talk about Weight Watchers a lot, but they've revamped their program so many times. But I would say it really depends on the person if they feel like it's helped them maintain their weight. What is your opinion of meal replacement plans like Medifast or Activia? I haven't looked specifically into those. There's so many out there. And I know Bryn. So I can get back with you on those specific ones, but you have to think about cost with those because sometimes they tend to be expensive. So then it's hard to maintain over time. And also people do them because of convenience. So I think it's important that we ask ourselves why we're doing it. It takes a lot of time sometimes to prepare meals or think of a recipe. So people get ideas from those different companies on also how to add convenience into your diet. But those specific ones, Bryn, I'd have to look into them and let you know. Jane, my intern, is on this call too. So I'm sure she can write those down and we'll look in and get back with you. You say low carb, high protein is bad, but is there a problem with cutting out refined carbs or simple carbs? So going back to the mentality, it doesn't mean, low carb, you can eat lower carbs and it still be a healthy, well-balanced diet, right? Because a lot of us consume, I showed that plate, and a lot of us are consuming way more than a fist size on our plate, right? Sometimes half of our plate is the carb, and then we have a little portion of fruits or vegetables. So it goes back to the portion when I'm referencing low carb. So extremely low, like keto, is something that we need to be mindful of because it's in a significant decrease in carbs. But when we're talking about refined carbs or simple carbs, it can be part of a well-balanced diet and you would have no problem, right? So it all depends on the amount you're consuming. And when we say simple carbs, we're talking about like sugary beverages and table sugar and honey and things we're adding to cookies. So in reference to that, we actually label them as added sugars. So there is a recommendation for decreasing added sugars because we know we could easily be drinking our calories if we're consuming a lot of soda or putting a lot of sugar in our coffee. So those are ways to decrease those simple refined sugars. And of course, cutting back if we're eating a lot of desserts. Yes, but it doesn't mean I can't have a cookie, right? Or it doesn't mean I can't have a donut or drink a sweetened beverage every now and then. It really depends on how often we're consuming them. I hope that answers your question. Can you discuss intermittent fasting? This is a more complex one, but intermittent fasting, basically, it's on the mentality of a certain amount of, and there are different phases, certain amount of hours of fasting and eating. The one thing with intermittent fasting is they have seen that there is some weight loss. It is, I think a lot more people are treading lightly when it comes to females. And there's some research around hormone imbalance related to intermittent fasting. Males, I think, tend to do a little better with the approach. But realizing that with intermittent fasting, we may, depending on how long you're fasting, maybe ignoring the hunger and like the appetite and the fullness cues that I was mentioning with being aware of them, we tend to ignore them because we're fasting, right? So I think that it has worked for some people, but I think we need to ask ourselves, is that a lifestyle change? Is that something we're going to do long-term? If I said, let's say I'm starting to fast at 6 p.m. and there's a dinner I'm going to at 7, do I not eat at the dinner? Do I not go to the dinner? And that goes back to quality of life. So when is it something that you've adapted short-term versus long-term? I think the research is still limited because it's a newer diet on the long-term effects of intermittent fasting. So it's still a question mark, but people are still researching. I think we need to just identify if it's a healthy, well-balanced approach for you. Are you ignoring your hunger and fullness cues? Is this really a lifestyle change that you can sustain over time? That's the biggest question with diets that are out there. Think lifestyle. Is this a behavior I can do forever? Because we know if it's not a lifestyle, we tend to digress. It's just a natural human thing that happens to us where we go into our old ways because it's hard to sustain and manage. Yep, someone said they tried Medifast and it was expensive and not sustainable. So it is a struggle. Slim fast, again, that's probably going to be, is that Slim fast the version of restricting for just drinking liquids? Is it, they've been evolving these diets over time, so I'm not sure in regard to that, is it just the beverage or the diet? So I think that would be my question for that person. Maybe they can come back and answer that. Do women of menopausal or premenopausal age need to follow a different diet than Mediterranean? Mediterranean isn't something that restricts any kind of food. It's a very well-balanced diet, so it's appropriate, but I think it depends on what's happening with your menopause and what different foods that might be more appropriate for someone going through menopause or premenopausal. And for everybody's different. So I would recommend seeing a dietitian because if you are having hormone imbalance and there are different things that you have questions about in regard to balancing it out, I would contact a dietitian because it just depends on what you mean and what phase you're in with menopause and premenopause, because some people's hormone levels are okay. So it really just depends on the person. And I am not specialized in hormone therapy related to nutrition, but I do know people who are. So please contact me through that email and I can connect you with some resources. I'm probably not the best person to answer that question about diets related to both of those states. Is too much green tea bad for you? So I think green tea, like the actual tea, like not the Lipton, sugary green tea, or are we adding like, does it have any sweetener in it? I think when we talk about tea, too much of anything isn't something we want as part of our diet. So how often are we drinking tea? Incorporating coffee and tea in our diet is very normal. We do that every day, unless you have reasons why you're restricting. So let's say you're trying to get more hydration in, but instead you're drinking a bunch of teas and you're continuing to just urinate it out. I think that's something you need to think about in terms of how am I best hydrating myself. But tea actually is a great source of antioxidants. So tea as part of a diet, and of course, if you're trying to restrict caffeine, that's another thing you need to consider. So it may just depend on you as a person. What would be the reason why you're limiting it, and how often are you really drinking it? Beverage replacing meals like Slim Fast, have you replacing 2 meals? Yeah, so replacing meals with a liquid beverage. A lot of times people will supplement with Slim Fast beverages as a snack or as like a meal replacement. They're on the run, like on the go. They have a busy day and they want to drink like an Ensure or Slim Fast, or I know there are different brands, and it really, you got to turn the back label and read the nutrition facts. And that's why I feel like it's really important for people to learn how to read the nutrition facts label, because depending on that product, you want to see if it has a well-balanced protein to carb to fat ratio, if you're going to consume it as a meal. But again, doing a shake as a on-the-go type thing because you're busy, it's better than not eating at all. But doing something as a meal replacement, it is a risk for people, right? And of course, I think that consuming our tolerance to liquid beverages 2 meals in a day, we're not getting fruits and vegetables and different nutrients and eating them not necessarily in the raw form, it could be in cooked form, eating the whole foods. So I think it just depends on how often you're consuming them too, because let's say you're having 3 meals a day and 2 of them are liquid, I think that can become about where nutrients rise a lot, and are you doing enough for the food groups in your diet, like going back to my plate, it'd be really hard for you to get your plate to look like that or get the nutrition composition from the shake. So really is going to go back to turning that label over and learning how to read the nutrition facts label, and maybe even consulting with a dietitian because I worry about to incorporate it to your meals are coming from all the supplement. Cider vinegar. So there's a lot of claims around apple cider vinegar, and based on research, if you're doing it, I really ask the question: what is the purpose of apple cider vinegar? Research shows that doing it, let's say by consuming 2 tablespoons a day, has only resulted in a weight loss of 2 pounds. Not much. So by claims around diabetes are out there as well. They're still doing research, but there has been research on that. It doesn't mean people are taking medication. It just means it's helping metabolize it a little better, but not influence anything. There's still research on high blood pressure. It's doing. Can't say any hard evidence is there, especially for weight loss. No. And then looking at the supplement, we need to look at what else is on the supplement, how much of it you're consulting with your doctor, and just to make sure it's not messing with the other medications that you're taking. So I think it depends on why you would want to consult apple cider vinegar. Other than as a salad dressing, I think that's great. So that's my thought. But there's still involving a lot of research on apple cider vinegar. Seems like it's just a good talk about diets, and I have what would be how I get over food aversion? Maybe you don't mind explaining that a little more. Can everyone hear me okay?
No.
No?
No, you're breaking up.
No, it just sounds like gobbledygook. Yeah, it's all jumbled.
We did not hear you anything.
Yeah, we can't understand anything you're saying. Someone said you're getting kickback from your mic.
Yeah, now we completely lost her.
And so. Right.
A lot of people joined this one.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Moya, can you hear?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know where did that happen? Do I need to go back?
Oh, we did not hear anything what you said earlier.
Oh my God, at all?
It kind of happened when you were talking about apple cider vinegar diet.
Yeah, for sure.
Before apple cider vinegar.
The green tea, I think, is where it started.
Yeah, green tea is the.
Well, that's not good. Okay, green tea. Let me go back. Hold on. Right. The question was, is too much green tea bad for you? And then my response was around, it depends on how much you're consuming and in what form. So are you consuming the tea with water with no sugar added? Because then we're going to look at added sugar if you're adding sugar to it. If you're doing it, if you're concerned about caffeine intake, if you have any kind of heart-related issues, that might be a concern. If you are worried about hydration and you're not consuming enough water and you're drinking tea instead. So there's a lot of reasons why it may not be the best to consume too much, but coffee and tea on a daily basis are just fine. I think it depends on the reason why you would be concerned about whether you could consume 1 versus 3. And the next question was about SymFast as a meal replacement. I talked about being concerned about different nutrients coming from different food groups if you're going to drink your meals. So you got to turn the label over for whatever product, whether it's Ensure, Slim Fast, no matter the brand, you got to turn it over, read the nutrition facts label. And, you know, that might be a talk for another time, how to learn how to read one and figure out if it's providing enough carbs, protein, different vitamins and minerals. Because when you say, when we look at my plate and we talk about all the different food groups we're getting out of that plate, I'd be concerned to see if you're getting that if 2 of your meals are liquid. And of course, you'd be missing out on a lot of fiber. All right, what's your take on apple cider vinegar? Research on apple cider vinegar for weight loss is very weak because the studies are showing that even a small amount of apple cider vinegar every single day, even for 3 months, only resulted in a 2-pound weight loss. So not significant enough to say, I'm gonna do this, you know, every day. And of course, when they stopped it, they gained it back. So doing different supplements, you need to consult with your doctor about what that supplement is, but doing apple cider vinegar for, let's say you've read some research on like diabetes, some people have wanted to take it for diabetes control. You need to also speak to your doctor about that because it will not supplement medication, that's for sure, but they have seen some research in that it supports diabetes. So I think it depends on why you're consuming apple cider vinegar, but for weight loss reasons, no. Okay, yeah, Mary, can you hear me well now?
Yes, very clear.
Okay.
Very clear.
Okay, so how do you get over food aversion? My question to you was, can you explain that a little further and what you mean by that so I can help put that into perspective a little more?
I didn't write that, you just overlooked it, but somebody else said, how do I eat vegetables when I have severe food aversion to most? So I don't know if that was the same person that asked that question. If you're still on, please clarify, but she wants to know, how do I include vegetables when I have a severe food aversion to most vegetables?
I think consulting with a dietitian about what vegetables you're missing will help figure out what you need to do in order to kind of place them back in your diet, because depending on the vegetables you can't consume, you'd be able to get those nutrients from other food groups. So that is probably something you would need to, and hopefully if you know what those are, you can write them down, but I would definitely recommend consulting with a dietitian about which ones you're able and not able to eat, so you can figure out how to best fit them back into your diet in other ways. And of course, is it because you just don't like it, because you want to try it in different ways, because it makes you feel sick, it's an allergy? There's a lot of different things that a dietitian can look at in terms of trying to incorporate different nutrients in your diet, depending on the ones you're missing. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down now. I think I'm caught up. And also, if you consult with a dietitian about the food aversion, if you consult with them, they may recommend a specific supplement for you depending on what vegetables you can't consume. I don't know if you're already taking a multivitamin, but that would support that. But any kind of supplement, again, whatever it is, we need to consult with our doctor, but we also need to learn how to understand which supplement is best for us. And I could talk about, nutrition all day long, but reading a supplement label is different than reading a nutrition facts label. And looking at which ones are right for you, because sometimes they have, mega doses of certain nutrients and sometimes they're unnecessary. So it also depends on back to which vegetables you're missing. Is it significant enough to recommend that specific nutrient? And that's why I feel like I really recommend consulting with a dietitian about it. Okay, I see that. Texture and taste. You're not alone. A lot of people have that, and they found different ways to put it in different cooking methods, blending. Some people, they've worked with a dietitian and figured out which supplements were best for them. If you've really tried a lot of different ways, but I think there's trial and error is the biggest thing. Keeping a food diary also on the ones that, if it's not just texture and taste, and the ones that bother you versus others is also something. There's also therapy mechanisms that I've worked or I've spoken to a lot of therapists who work with food aversion with children. And that doesn't mean people don't deal with it in adulthood, but it is a thing. So there's also therapy related to food aversion and how to adapt and learn how to want to consume other textures and tastes. Yes, children, I see your comment. And I've heard a lot of people who I've recommended I've talked to different therapists about it too. And, at different children have also overcome a lot of that by working with different therapists. It may be speech, it may be they have a specific one related to food. So if that's something you're interested in, I think that's, yes, I can share my contact info right now in the box. And if I can help with a resource related to anything, please reach out. Oops, I just sent that specifically.
It's Mary.
Yes.
When you say consult with your doctor, two things. I know that I used to, was much more into supplementation and all that. And, I would always hear that doctors didn't know anything about supplements. They had no nutrition classes in medical school, and hopefully they do now. This was probably 15 years ago. But most of us only see our physician once a year when we go for our annual. And so if we need answers now, I don't know that we're going to make an appointment with the doctor just to talk to him about supplements, so that truthfully, he might really know enough to be able to advise us well about it. So is there an alternative to that?
So here's what I would say to that. So the reason why you're consulting with your doctor is not necessarily for him to tell you if the supplement is good or bad. The reason why you're consulting with your doctor is so he can determine if, depending on your medication list, because some people have no medications, but some people are on some, if it's okay to take it. So that is something when you go to the doctor and you record, these are the medications I'm on, people leave off the supplements they're on. And the doctor does need to know what supplements you're on to see if there's any contraindications with the actual drugs. And it is something important. So even when you're starting a new supplement, it doesn't mean you have to go in, you can call the doctor, and most of the time you can get a pretty quick response. But relating to whether the supplement is good or bad, you're right. Doctors have very little knowledge on nutrition and supplements. And I feel like that is something you would have to learn how to read. So if it's your doctor, sometimes will recommend a specific supplement. So I know a lot of people who take vitamin D because their doctor have told them to, but getting the exact amount from your doctors is common with something like vitamin D. But when people get on just random supplements because they were heard they were good for you, is what I think you need to fact check. So what I mean by that is go on the resources I shared with you earlier and see if there's any research on those supplements. There most likely will be a dietitian who's written about it, or someone who's talking about the supplement in regard to whether it's good for a specific disease state. Learning how to read a supplement is not going to happen in the next 6 minutes, but I do think it's one that I would absolutely feel free to contact me. But I would be able to speak about maybe another time. But I do think there's a simple way of learning how to read if a supplement is safe. There's USP, which that it's been a third-party certified supplement that the FDA would recommend, because I don't know if you guys know this, they're very loosely controlled and they don't have to be tightly controlled like a drug. I think it's something we need to consider when looking at supplements for that reason. It's not just because it's on the shelf, it means, yes, it's okay for me to take, right? And that is very much individualized. Every person, depending on their medication list, depending on their supplement list, those go hand in hand, but also learning how to read one is another part of that. So I would recommend learning from a dietitian how to read one. And that doesn't take, multiple sessions or classes. It could be just one meeting, one counseling session with a dietitian would help address whatever it is you need. Now, if it's, of course, like some of the people who talked about food aversions, that's probably not going to happen in one class or one session. That might take a little longer, but I think those are some tips I can provide. But it's very complex in taking a supplement and making that decision. Sometimes we take them because we're like, oh, well, it can't hurt me. Well, we want to make sure it's safe. So we're not saying that all supplements are harmful, but we want to make sure they're right for your needs.
Well, I want to ask you, and I don't know how you feel about responding to one particular brand, but if you don't feel comfortable with it, I understand. But Juice Plus, and I'm thinking about the person that has the aversion to eating fruits and vegetables. You know, they say that their supplement consists of what, 16 fresh fruits and vegetables that have been flash frozen. It's equivalent when you take those capsules of just consuming the fruits and vegetables. I mean, do you agree with that? Do you think that that's for somebody that maybe isn't getting enough fruits and vegetables, that that's a good alternative, or do you not?
Yeah. I mean, even if you feel like you're not getting enough, sometimes a multivitamin would suffice, right? But in case of something like Juice Plus, and I would really have to, again, flip over the label because it's a supplement and look at how much of each quantity is in there. And then the other thing I would look at is price. So Juice Plus may not be affordable for some people. It is on the pricier side, I believe. And I don't know if that's changed at all. But for some people's case, I mean, if they don't feel like their diet is well balanced, then they might turn to a multivitamin that has, you know, sufficient amount, not any mega doses, not anything significant over 100% of what they need in a day. But something like Juice Plus might be a fit. I just have to look over, to be honest with you, on the back label before I can say this is great or this is horrible. I would feel different at this point.
Well, one other quick question, capsules versus tablets with supplements. I've heard tablets don't break down easily. Capsules break down much better. Is it better to try to find a supplement that's in capsule or liquid form than tablet form?
I think tablets, capsules, if I'm not mistaken, would just dissolve quicker. Because if you let's say you were to open the capsule, it's just in powder form, right? So I think your body would metabolize both just fine, but one might metabolize quicker than the other. So it's, I don't say like fast acting, but it'll dissolve quicker is my understanding of that difference. But I don't think either one is like necessarily a preference. I think it just, some people actually have a preference in terms of what they can swallow. Some people, the capsule, actually they're allergic to an ingredient in the capsule. So I think it just depends on the person with that one too. These are great questions though.
And if you're looking for a dietitian, where do you go? Just Google dietitians or nutritionists in Tallahassee?
Well, obviously you can do that, but you can also see a dietitian at the Metabolic Health Center. Of course, depending on your insurance, they may or may not cover the service you're getting. And so it depends on any chronic conditions. If you're going in for something like food aversion or something like that, your insurance may or may not cover that. It just depends on the provider. But you can absolutely see a dietitian at the Metabolic Health Center. So I can type that in, TMH Metabolic Health Center. And we have dietitians that would be happy to also do something sustainable if people want, let's say a 1 hour or a 30-minute, or they have all those services as well. I will just make note of the fact that you would need a physician referral. Your primary care doctor can refer you to the Metabolic Health Center to get those services, because we also want to make sure if there is any coverage involved that you're able to get that. Hopefully I answered everyone's questions. I know it's 1 o'clock. Please email me if you have any questions. If I can't answer right away, I'll make sure I get back with you with some evidence-based information. But I know it's difficult because you've heard me say a lot of different things. Nutrition is not black and white. It is definitely gray. There's always new scientific evidence out there. So trying to follow reputable sources like My Plate and Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the ones I referenced earlier is really helpful to at least a starting point if you can't see a dietitian now. But I would obviously recommend if you've got something specific going on, if you need assistance like some of the ones that were mentioned earlier, I do think consulting with one is definitely worth your while and time.
Well, Afaf, you've done a great job. We really appreciate your time and your enthusiasm and all this great information, and even more so that you're willing to be accessible for us to reach out to you, if we have any questions. And I just thank you all for showing up today. I'm so excited to see that some of you people are really concerned about getting healthier and doing it the right way. So fantastic. Thanks again to everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.